All right, guys, welcome back. Second podcast of the day. We got my man Christian Harder, known as Real Charter 30. He is a longtime friend. Also got a lot of Maryland ties and roots. So we have some catching up to do. It's been a while. Christian, how are you?
What's up, Jeff? Yeah, it's good to see you, man.
You as well. You as well. Crazy time, crazy year, but it is what it is. And for poker, at least, there is some opportunity to play online and things we like to do. I think it's not maybe affecting our life as much as maybe some people, some industries. How has COVID been for you overall?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how quickly the landscape changed. Luckily for me, like I've been the past few years, really the past 10 years, but I've gone ebbs and flows of playing a lot more cash. So this year has been really good because I've just been playing online cash mostly, online PLO specifically. Of course, I'm still like a tournament donkey at heart, so I still have to get in the mix in those. But yeah, like fortunately or unfortunately, depending how you think about it, like COVID has been okay, has been good for me in terms of my job. But obviously, it's a terrible thing that's happening in the world. But yeah, the landscape changed quickly, but fortunately for me, I was like able to sort of adapt and just play on freaking my iPads and all this stuff. It's like I couldn't imagine even a year and a half ago, like what my daily thing looks like, daily grind looks like.
For sure. No, it has been an interesting year. I do, speaking of tournaments, we're going to spend some time going down memory lane, which I always enjoy. You've got an illustrious career as well. You've got a long time. We started around the same time, and we've known each other a long time as well, and also did live in the same vicinity for a while. Actually, literally, your career might be like a mirror of mine in terms of we have very close results online. We play a lot of the same stuff, or live. We also have. You started, I think my first ever Henna Mob was September of 07. Yours is August 07. And, you delved right in, though, and hit some.
Yeah, I started off running.
You got right in there and dinked pretty hard. Actually, one of the few, though, who didn't final table his first Henna Mob, which I feel like that's like an automatic, like I've just noticed. I feel like people who final table that first live event or cash, it kind of hooks you. So you waited a whole extra to your second to hit a big score. But tell me about where you were in your career at this time, like playing online versus live, and what was going on here in August of 07 and what brought you to live.
So I guess in 07, I was like the typical like online poker boom moneymaker in high school, 2003, 4, 5, 6, like all of us, graduated high school 2005. And then I just went to college, and I was kind of like teetering in between of not caring about school at all and grinding, and then I started didn't really have that much money, and then in 2006, I think I got backed by Mike McDonald, won a tournament online here and there, and then I actually left and got backed by Backs and Sheets, some legendary poker backers, both of them, all three of them really, and then in 2008, obviously I won a seat to the Bahamas tournament. I would go to Turning Stone. That's basically all I could do because I was 18, 19 at the time. I want to see to the PCA. It's, of course, in January, or it was in January. So I went on winter break of school, and I final tabled it. I dropped out of school. I didn't go back to school for the second semester. I went to Germany, final tabled that, lost my old backer, Timex, who won that tournament.
Timex won the tournament?
Quite a lucky start in terms of live, just immediately final tabling, back-to-back EPTs, basically. But I had obviously been playing a lot online just before that, and in 2007 was a really good year for me online. Instead, that's kind of what started it. I kind of just honestly, in poker was a completely different game. Obviously, and other people know, back then, honestly, the way I started playing poker and started getting good at poker was just reading on 2+2 what other people said, or even pocket fives, but. Back then, you could just get free content. You could immediately be one of the better regulars in the game. So yeah, I was just lucky to get in at the right time, and then obviously final tabling those two tournaments right off the start helped me get a bankroll and just keep going. Here I am.
Yeah, and how did you get in touch with McDonald, and then what happened? So you go 7th, 8th in these two EPTs in the same month. I mean that must have been pretty wild. To big scores, 6-figure scores, also playing for life-changing money. I mean, 200K is kind of life-changing money, especially early on at the beginning at this time. But you're playing for $1 million, $2 million. What was it like to just be there straight out the gate and be like, see that 2 million to first, 8 left, locking up 6 figures? Like, what was that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. Well, back to your first question, like I think I was just like posting a lot on 2+2, and I didn't sound like an idiot. And basically back then, that's like a that's all you had to do to meet the minimum threshold for Timex to back you. So I remember just messaging him, and I think I won the full tilt 1K in 2007, and then I like got a little money, and then yeah, and then just yeah, and then immediately like going like those, I think it's funny, I never even thought of this. I think Bahamas and Germany were the first 2 countries. That's the first time I've ever been out of the country. Those 2 countries back to back. And yeah, I was definitely like pretty uncomfortable, like because I only played live at Turning Stone, and to be all set and like playing for millions of dollars, or $1 million or $2 million was quite the rush. I definitely was just like trying to ladder at times and not like play my game. But when you're a 19-year-old kid with no money, and then all of a sudden you're in these spots, it's tough to keep your head. Listen,
I've been playing for 17 years, and that's still laddering's always never a bad thing. It's fun to get those pay jumps, especially when they're significant. So all right, so you have some big success at this point though. Were you playing? I mean, you were, because I remember too back in the Maryland days when I lived in 09 till 15, and we were we would be at AC at the same time. We would run into each other. We talked, and we were playing a lot. Like we were really grinding a lot. But you were more of a live, or at this point you were still on? I mean, because you were basically one of the marquee household names in online poker at its peak.
Yeah.
In 2009, you were the #1 ranked player maybe in the world between live and online, or I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I think that was like a card player thing where they combined Player of the Year points with online Player of the Year points. Right. But yeah, in 2000, basically until 2009, I was just like, I would play like a live tournament. Well, I wasn't. First of all, I wasn't 21 until 2009. So, or the end of 2008. But I was still playing mostly just like online tournaments until 2009, 10. And then that's when I kind of stopped playing. Stopped playing. I played more live probably in 2010 and 11. And then that's also when I started playing cash. So then I kind of have mixed a lot. Like, it's funny, actually in 2011, I was probably going to get Supernova Elite, like from playing PLO. So I kind of have always I would just get bored sort of and like wanted to try something new. And all of a sudden in late 2010, I fell in love with PLO. And I was like, all right, and then January 1st hit, and I'm like, I want to get Supernova Elite or whatever. And then Black Friday happened, and that kind of like derailed things, where then I went back to just playing mostly live, of course. And then now I'm playing mostly PLO cash again. So I
didn't realize you were so into PLO. That's how my main game is PLO cash, and then I like tournaments still. But there is something just fun about it. I didn't realize that you were so that you enjoyed playing cash so much.
Yeah.
Do you feel the game's better at this point? Like, it does seem to be that's the overall consensus.
I think it's like not even remotely close. Like, I think in terms of where the landscape of where games are, PLO is just way softer of games. Because I still play like probably 10% no limit online, but that's only in like certain situations. Because for the most part, like if you're playing above like even 1-2, but like I'm playing mostly like 5, 10, 10, 20 PLO. If you're playing those stakes in no limit, it's like you have to do so much more work to keep up with the player pool.
Makes sense.
And on average, just like the fun players or the rec players are just I think better in no limit as well.
That makes sense too. Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement. Also, it's more fun, right? It just is. There's 4.
Yeah, and it's just a game that I enjoyed. It kind of captivated me. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm looking too at your Hendon Mob again. I didn't realize this particularly, but I do see some, like, you got deep in the 25K PLO. Looks like you've had some pretty good scores in actual PLO.
Yeah, I got 2 fourths in World Series PLO.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. And your highlight, is it your biggest? I remember this specifically because this was, I think, the first year they dropped it, or one of them, because you did win the PokerStars PCA, where it all began for you. How was that to get back and actually close this out, and against your former backer, nonetheless? Heads up, that must have been a pretty wild, surreal feeling.
Yeah, I came full circle, I guess. That was awesome. Like, that was just a great feeling. And obviously the money was amazing, even though it was the smallest PCA ever. But just I never won like a major live tournament, so that was I got second in WPT, and to finally to actually win a freaking tournament, win a big tournament. Obviously, I've won small tournaments, especially a tournament like the Bahamas was it was just awesome to like finally reach what I felt like pinnacle or whatever. We reached the best. So that it was funny playing against backs. We actually chopped, but then we played heads up, and I was lucky to win the whatever final hand. Yeah, it was funny playing against backs. Cliff is like, I owe so much to Cliff, and he's the man. So it was obviously very cool to play against him.
Yeah, it's awesome. You say to get the monkey off the back, win a major. I'm same boat. I've got seconds and thirds in WSOP and WPTs, and it's hard to get there. It's hard to win. And I remember for the longest time, you were definitely one of those guys. People would say like Christian's one of the best that hasn't like won a major, hasn't got like a title. So like that does have to feel good. You got to tell me how to finish. Let me know how to close out that.
It's hard, man.
Those are hard. To actually win is hard. So that was good. I remember seeing that. I was like, wow, that's awesome. That was very cool. What is that? Would you say, what was maybe the most significant though? Was it the early on 7th for 200 that just kind of kept you in and let you know it was possible?
It would have to be those two, even though, it's really hard to say because the money wasn't that much different. Honestly, getting 4th in the WPT championship, which you have up, was pretty huge for me at the time. It gave me, I felt like that's the first time when I got 4th in that tournament. It's the first time where I felt like I had real money, I guess, maybe. I just been doing well online and then at that point and then doing well and then, getting 4th there, I felt like I was doing all right. Not, obviously as an 18, 19-year-old, when I have 100K, that's a lot. But I remember that point feeling like, all right, I can do this. I'm good. I can sustain a big, downswing. I just felt like I was good. I don't know.
Right. You were comfortable. That was a definite stepping stone.
But I think the win, overall the win was definitely the biggest moment. Because honestly, a couple years before that, two prior years before that, I'd done pretty bad in live tournaments. In poker's a game where you're always especially me who's been around for so long, who's played and seen different types of how the game's changed. Sometimes you're questioning yourself. So to help me give you some more validation about all right, at least I'm not giving it away in these tournaments.
Right. Yeah, it is. How do you deal with that with the results oriented? You have a pretty good idea when you're running bad or not, but a lot of times too, it's not your last hand or whatever. And that. So it's not like, oh, I lost ace jack to ace 10 and I got knocked out. Well, why did you only have 12 blinds? So do you ever, is it easy for you to differentiate when you think you're not playing your best when you're running bad, or do you struggle with that to say man, what's going on? I'm in a slump, or, am I playing bad? Because I always find that's difficult.
Yeah, I think it's especially difficult with live, and that's obviously because of the sample size issue. So, if you're playing online and you're going months and months of losing, that you can probably figure out right there, within 2 or 3 months, or even less. Okay, I need to figure out what's going on, why this is happening. But in terms of live, you can it's so trippy. You can trick yourself. You can convince yourself one way or the other, whether you're just running bad or you're playing bad, and it could be the opposite. So I've always struggled live with the sample size because I'm playing 50 tournaments a year. That's nothing. You can play that in 2 days, right, online. So it's been a struggle of mine to figure out at certain times in my poker career, especially later in my poker career, my tournament later career, about the balance between, am I just running bad, or am I no longer have the edge that I did? And obviously I've realized now that, I'm not over time, everyone's edges, especially someone like me who's, an old man in the poker tournament scene, that my edges have gone way down, and that's okay. And that's part of the reason why I'm, playing more cash games I'm more comfortable in, just earning money, whatever. But obviously, and then also COVID has changed a lot of things where, maybe because I'm my age, but I've struggled the patience of online tournaments. Now that so that's also been another thing where I just don't feel like sitting on my computer all day, every day. So mad respect to you and all the other guys who've been around since 2000, pre-Black Friday, who are still, grinding the tournament scene. I love the online tournaments.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, I got into the Twitch thing because for sure the same thing. I do feel like it's tough to sit even days where, there's days where you don't really feel up to it. So I kind of, yeah, having that sort of makes it like a little bit of a cheat code for me to like be in there, talk with people, keep entertained, keep excited. Cause it is kind of tough to say, all right, here we go for 12 hours. I'm just going to take 2 and 3 outers and coolers in the face for like,
and maybe there's some accountability. Like, all right, I can't. Like, I got people watching me. I got to stream. I got a party poker deal. I can't just like mail it in tonight. Like,
right? Yeah, I'm not going to.
Maybe I'm wrong. But
there's some punts, but less. Yeah, for sure.
You're not punting. You're not doing it. You're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You're not really playing the game, but no, for sure. I think that's fair to be said. And cash games definitely more sturdy if you have good games or good access to games.
Yeah.
Which there are still very good games, especially during I feel like these Corona COVID times. There's a lot of different options, a lot of games people are playing, and PLO cash games seem to be the preference in general from what I know of and see. Tell me a bit about like what you do for work on your game, what you did back then, and what you're doing now to keep up or try to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Back then it really wasn't much. Like I mean, I've said this like on Twitter or like to other people, but honestly, in 2007, 8, like you could become like one of the better regulars by reading 2+2. And that's kind of amazing because like a lot of the best players in the world, like Ike and Ansky and Sean Deeb, all those guys were just like posting like, hey, what should I do in this hand? And they would just respond. And then honestly, because of the lack of like learning tools back then, that was the best way. So that was easy. And like, I'm someone who just is like a tactile, like I learned by figuring it out. So, and then that's probably part of the reason why in 2020 I know that I'm not going to be like one of the elite players in the world, and I'm content with that now. As for now in learning, it's a couple things. It's I'm someone who, and then this is another reason, I'm someone who's kind of struggled like with dealing with solvers like myself. So I haven't like super like learned a lot from directly hands-on, like learning from Munker or Pio. But in terms of talking to people, in terms of, I do a lot of absorbing content from other people instead of actually doing it myself, whether I'm watching a course, I bought some courses, or whether I'm watching videos or talking to people. I still talk to people about hands, and, I'm sure an internet nerd will laugh, like you're talking to people instead of putting into a solver, but that's okay. Like that's how I've gotten like to where I am, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm more that way too. I mean, I know the solver stuff and I do a bit of it, but for sure I'd rather talk to people. And
honestly, I find it boring, and that's part of the things. Like I'm always someone who struggled with like, that's kind of why like it's hard for me to grind online tournaments all day, because I just get bored, and I still like, maybe because I've been in the game for so long where I don't have the same fire. Where I remember waking up for a Sunday in 2009, 10, 8, 11, where I'd like be fired up. And I just don't have that. I don't have the fire for the online tournament grind anymore. I don't have a fire for like the super long grind. But I still love poker. It's just a different kind of grind. It's the old one.
No, we're in the same. I think I feel the same kind of in a lot of respects to what you're saying. To find that it's different, and it's also it is harder now. But like where do you believe? Like let's just say you hop in some of these 5Ks or live at 3,200 WPT. Like what do you believe? Obviously you can still win. So can I. Some of these guys are doing a lot of advanced work, but these fields are great. You know how to close poker tournaments. Like, yeah, sure, there might be certain stack sizes where you should be doing something a little differently what the book says, but that doesn't mean, trust me, there's guys that are winning tournaments and live tournaments that are, don't have much ability at all or whatever. Like you still considered a world-class poker player. I would throw myself in there. Like we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of knowledge. We're still kind of staying in tune to what's going on. What would you say would separate you from someone like that is doing like the most work and so advanced? Like where do you think you would compare? Like
well, I mean, I think a lot of people like that, like they would do like way better than me in like a high roller. I do think like just my experience in terms of if I'm playing a main event, like a 3,500 WPT, just my experience with certain types of player pools and certain understanding like humans and understanding like live poker. And obviously just the experience of playing so many hands against these certain types of players. I think just my experience in understanding certain situations and certain spots and how rec players and how maybe weaker pros will react to certain situations. I think that's one of the bigger advantages I have, and that's obviously like mostly a live poker thing. Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. And would you consider yourself more, you prefer now, let's say COVID's back, done, and say this coming summer, like do you prefer live to online though, or are you just like now you're so used to a lot online and
it's hard to say. I haven't really been motivated to play live at all. I'm just enjoying like the grind online, short sessions. That's the thing I've been saying, like the patience thing where I can like play for an hour of cash or an hour and a half, take a break, whatever, do what I have to do, play for another 2 hours. So that's like honestly like the most appealing thing to me about online. And then in terms of live, even playing cash, it's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna play for 6 hours. Like, but obviously, I think ideally for me, it's a mixture of both. And I still love tournaments. Like, I'd love for COVID to be over and me like to fly to Florida or even the Borgata and play at 3,500 WTA. So, like, obviously, I think for me and for my mental state and my happiness, I would say some mixture of both. Right. But mostly, I would say online PLO and live tournaments.
Yeah, that's I agree. I think it's good to have the mix. I think it's also fun. I think that the ability to play cash and tournaments for a living, to be able to mix in both is important, because it's kind of fun to have that chance at that massive score. It's also nice to have the consistent ability if you're plus CV in a game that you can kind of pick up consistent money, but then have a shot to kind of level up or hit that kind of game-changing score. You need that excitement and kind of change of pace, I think, too, sometimes. But stuck on a tournament grind only is also pretty scary and can be tough, right? Like the variance, and it's just there's a lot of uncertainties. What would be, looking back on being backed at different times? You mentioned Mike McDonald. You mentioned backs and sheets. What were the reasons to starting being backed and then stopping and picking up? And would you have done anything differently? Like, knowing what you know now, do you think you did anything differently that you should have, or that was just how it should have been because of where you were in the situation? And what were the pros and cons?
I mean, the pros are at the beginning, I had no money. So I could play like $10. I could play like $5 or $10 tournaments, right? Because I'm 17. Oh, not 17. I'm 18 or whatever. Right. And so that was a no-brainer for Timex. In terms of backs and sheets, I think maybe I would have left earlier. But these are sharp guys. They did special incentives for me to stay with them. So ideally maybe it would be to leave earlier from backs and sheets, because obviously when I was with them was when I was just like, in terms of tournaments, I was just making the most money I've made in my career. So ideally, it would be to leave a little earlier with them. But, I was young and I was happy with how the situation was going. And and actually, I just remember this. But my third backer later in the career after I left, mostly for like was actually mostly for like a high stakes live game, was your previous guest, Tom Marchese. So shout out to him.
That's awesome. Yeah, Tom's a great guy. I know you were mentioning some of the stuff with Tom. I didn't know he actually you were backed by him, but yeah, he's gotten pretty deep into the sports card world, as we were discussing earlier. And I know you are a big sports fan, Maryland in particular. Yeah. What's been your sports take and appetite recently? Are you doing betting? Are you doing any sports card collecting?
Yeah, I love sports. I mean, still, since I was a kid, like I've always been. And that's kind of how I feel like part of what made me in poker was I was so competitive and I loved sports as a kid, but I really wasn't that good at them. Like I barely played high school baseball, and I think I found something like later in my high school career. I found poker. I found something where I could be competitive and I could compete like actually well at. So I think that's kind of why sports is kind of like why poker happened for me. But yeah, I love sports. I love cards, and I was just, as we were saying before stream, Tom, man, I remember a couple of years ago how generous he was. We were just talking about sports cards. He's like, "What's your address?" And all of a sudden, 3 days later, he sends me a couple $100s worth of cards, like legit, like numbered autos, like of real stars. And I was like, man, Tom's always like the nicest dude in the world. So I can't wait when COVID's over and hopefully I'm back in Vegas to check out his store.
Yeah, me too. I want to get there and check that out. Also, tell me about your monogram or the Charter 30. What's the 30 and what's go Christian Harder? I get Charter.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about, 30? What's the number there?
Charter. You know, a couple people in high school used to call me C Harder, but that lost on the poker because once they see it in the how it's written, it went to Charter, right?
Yeah.
30 is the street address that I grew up on. Actually, that's all it is. That's when I was coming up with an AIM screen name back in the day. I was like, I need something at the end. The first part didn't work. What number am I going to go with? I went with the street, my address. So that's it. And I still rolled with it.
That's awesome. Well, that name definitely provided to be a strong name on there. And I think your biggest cash, at least recorded on here, is 87,000. But you had over 3 million in earnings to show how consistent you were, peaking at number 14 on the rankings of the sliding leaderboards. How into you were into this stuff, Pocket Fives and the rankings, and seeing that? A pretty cool site.
Yeah, back then I was all like, I remember in 2008-9, I was just like trying to make the top 10. I guess I couldn't. It says my all-time high is 14. But man, never getting a 100K score online was so frustrating for me. Obviously, at my peak, there weren't that many tournaments with 100K for score. But I think I have I don't know, 6 cashes between 70 and 87. So to not have 100, I thought, still to this day, you need to get back.
Well, that just shows how strong. I know you won the 100 rebuy a lot, and you definitely have a crazy amount. To have 3.2 million and nothing over 87 shows you how many strong scores you had in there. And also I want to talk about, you grew up in, I believe, is it Annapolis or I knew you were in Maryland, and you used to go to Navy games with your dad like every weekend. Is that?
Yeah, I used to. A lot of times I just go by myself. So I grew up basically right next to the Navy football stadium, so I would walk to the games. So yeah, I grew up loving sports. I grew up Annapolis. I love. It's my hometown. I'm still in Maryland, but I'm not in Annapolis, but I'm very close. But yeah, I just grew up going to Navy games, but then I also obviously loved Maryland, as you know.
Yeah, and I was actually Jeff E. Shout out to him. He actually was excited. He was pumped up, sending me some messages like, "Oh yeah, man, this is great. We're gonna watch." He might be watching right now. I'm sure he'll check this out. But he told me a story. I don't want to use names, but he might have taken you to a poker game once, and I know the two guys, but there was I believe a knife pulled out and got pretty crazy. What was that like?
Yeah, we were playing in a home game, and this is before casinos opened in Maryland. Casinos opened in Maryland, I don't know, 6 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. And we were probably playing like 10-25, no limit or something. And yeah, there was a disagreement between two gentlemen. And the next thing I know, one guy went to the kitchen and come back with a knife, and I was just out of there. Luckily, there was that was the extent of it for those two. But yeah, Jeff laughs at me because he always says, "Man, you were out of there so fast." I just left. I was just like, I maybe took a photo of my stack, and I was like, "All right, this is time for me to go." For a couple of minutes, I was like, "This can't be happening," because I played with these guys before, and they're a little weird, a little different, but to escalate to that was a little much. For sure.
Yeah, it's a little out of hand. I do want to remind everyone that we are doing a $111 ticket giveaway courtesy of Party Poker. We are going to ask a question. If you want to get your question, we'll try to answer them. There's a lot. We got over 100. We're gonna try to answer some of these down the stretch here as well. So make sure you get that in, and we'll try to do our best to get to some of those. Also, the Ravens are playing tonight. We got the Ravens game on. Are you how big of a Ravens fan are you at the moment? Are you pretty into it? Are you following games closely?
Yeah, I mean, I love, part of the reason I haven't been playing online tournaments, I think, the past couple months is football. I love football, and whether it's sports betting or DFS or just being a fan of the Ravens or being a fan of players in the NFL in general, has been big for me. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens are going through little struggles right now, but they still, I think, have a ceiling to be able to win the Super Bowl. But a lot of things have to bounce their way at this point.
For sure. And what has been your thought on sports overall during COVID? Kind of how things have been handled. The NBA had some protests, the bubble. I actually personally, I don't watch a ton of sports as much as I would like, but I found the bubble for the NBA, I found that to be fascinating. I watched so many games. They were great games. It was intense. The atmosphere was a little weird and the whole thing kind of bizarre, but the actual games seemed really high level. And I thought it was good. What's your kind of take overall?
I love the bubble. I mean, it's easy for me to say. It was great. First of all, it was one of like the first sports to come back, right? So just having sports back in general was awesome. But the bubble, yeah, as you said, the level of play was super high. I read like the percentage, like players just played a lot better. They shot a lot better probably because of the lack of noise and fans. So obviously the level was super high, and it was a really good experience. Yeah, and obviously not having to deal with like players contracting COVID and getting things canceled. It's been kind of a shit show in college football and the NFL. So hopefully we can kill this virus.
Do you think at this point, is there any major sports that are in jeopardy and not finishing? Because I did see there was a couple teams, I think the Ravens, right, and a few others had like huge breakouts and cases. Yeah. Some games have been scheduled and moved, like, because at some point it could get too crazy if like enough players get it and teams have to miss schedule games. And there's been some juggling already, which it looks like it's manageable at the moment, but like there is, I guess, a scenario where it could just get too crazy, right?
Yeah, I think they're too deep in. I think at this point they're going to finish. They just have to do more juggling. But being on week 13, like they're 70% of the way down the tournament, done the season. So yeah, like for example, the Ravens are playing on a Tuesday night, and they played on last Wednesday night, I think, which is just so funny if you follow NFL, like to have Tuesday and Wednesday night games. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, I think it's destined to finish. But they've done it. I think they've done. There's been some hiccups, but they've done what they could.
For sure. Who are a couple of players? And I think I know the answer, but to those watching, who are some of the guys like your crew of poker that you've grown up with, been a part of, and learned from, and sort of been a team, if you will? Who are some of the guys that are kind of in your inner circle?
For me, two names jump off the board, and they're two guys that are better than me. Awesome dudes, awesome poker players. Greg Merson, who won the main event. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Greg.
Happy birthday. He's supposed to be on the podcast as well. I got to reach out to him. I know he's kind of been under the radar. Like, I haven't talked to him in a while, but I know.
Yeah, you should hit him up. He's a great interview, and Greg still plays. He plays more than me. He plays every day. He's a grinder, man.
Yeah.
And Anthony Gregg, another guy, who's just an amazing dude, an amazing poker player. So honestly, them, like at the beginning of my poker career, and we were kind of came up at the beginning, like just seeing those guys, and then into the mid 2010s and how well they were doing. They were just like an inspiration, and they were great people to talk hands to, great people just to talk life to, and yeah, those two for sure have meant a lot to me.
Yeah, those are two strong names.
There's a lot of other names, but I have to just say those two for sure.
Those are the two that I was thinking and stood out, and definitely Maryland roots, and very, very strong. I know Greggy with that 2012 pretty amazing year he had with the winning. I think he won. Didn't he win the Six Max 10K plus the?
He won the 10K Six Max, and the very next tournament was the main event. He won that, and then Tony won the 100K one drop among a bunch of other cashes. Tony has ridiculous, over 11 million cashes. He hasn't really played in the past 6 years.
Those are definitely two great guys to have in your circle, in your crew, and know what they're doing. So yeah, and how important is that? Because back, like we were saying, Tom was talking about this back in the day too. There wasn't really a lot of studying or solver stuff to do. So having a good group to chat with and talk with. You mentioned 2+2, having an area where you could get answers and talk with the best. Having direct access had to be a huge advantage for all you guys to kind of.
Yeah, I think that was the number one thing into pre-Black Friday was who you talk to. Like if you talk to people who knew what they were talking about, at least comparatively, right? Everything's comparatively, or everything's relative. That's how you got good. And I was able to have friends that were really good, and we all kind of learned together. And I think that's actually when I first met you was through SC Trojan, Scott Freeman, who at the time was shout out to him, was one of the best online tournament players in the world. And I remember going to your house in Baltimore with him. I think that was the first time we met. First time we hung out, at least. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It was 2000. It was probably 2008, right?
Probably 8 sounds right.
Yeah. That was good times. I mean, there was I think Baltimore, like the Maryland area, Michigan, there's certain states and regions, New Jersey, they kind of just have Florida, South Florida. Like there's certain pockets that have a really strong community or some really, good players and just kind of that have grown up and come through. And yeah, man, those are great times. Like those really were the Borgata. I remember we always tried to get up to Borgata during the WPTs and, Mike and
taking a limited AC with you and Mike. Yeah, the good old days, man.
Those were very, very fun times. Definitely not to be forgotten. I think that's something too, as life goes on and people get married, have kids, get busier, things happen. You got to remember people. I would say that's like the biggest thing is not take stuff for granted. There's different like pockets and areas of life, and being able to really be in the moment and understand how valuable those times are, because it's great to have family, great to have good friends, but in that time, to me, that was the most fun in terms of poker and playing and exploring and traveling and just the whole thing was it really was a good time. What do you think is the most enjoyable of your career? Which pocket of time, if you had to like go back to the very beginning, the middle, now, what do you like the most?
Yeah, probably just the very beginning. I remember as I said, like Bahamas was the first country I went to that was out of the country. First, country besides the US. And then Germany the next trip. And then that whole season I just was like 19-year-old bright-eyed, didn't really know, wasn't very cultured, didn't really know anything. And I went to, Denmark, Monte Carlo, whatever. I went EPT Copenhagen, EPT Monte Carlo. I don't know, EPT, I don't even remember, EPT London maybe. So just, I think that time, like being a 19-year-old, like traveling all over Europe back and forth. Obviously doing very well, both online and live. Like that was probably like one of the most enjoyable times, especially it's relative. Like I actually always say like the happiest I'd ever been winning a poker tournament was when I won a $5 tournament, probably in 2006. So it's just funny, like, because it's all relative to how you are in the moment. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all exactly. And it's, they can mean different things at different times, and the value proportionate to how much your net worth is or what's going on in your life. It can be all the difference. It can also be the difference in you staying in the game, having scores or getting a feel, knowing it's possible, getting that confidence. It goes a long way. What would be your advice to someone starting now? Because poker is something I asked Tom as well. It's different. The game has changed. If someone wants to come in and start trying to break in, it's like, hey, I love poker. I have a job, but I want to start playing a bit. What would be some tips you would say to people that comes in to the game today?
It's like it's a super tough entry point at this point. I think the best case would be if you're trying to play professionally, you would just need to like kind of go all in. If you're coming from you need to be able to like to learn from solvers, to learn from training sites. You need to really like go all in terms of playing small stakes online, watching videos, and then learning how to like use solvers, buy solvers. Like I would say, if you're trying to have fun and trying to do it on the side, make some side money, I would say just play only live. So that's kind of the opposite. But it's just tough now. Like I wouldn't, if a kid came up to me, especially like an American kid who doesn't have access to like the party pokers and PokerStars. I basically would say, this probably isn't the time to like try to become an online crusher. Like there's very little, like you can see in terms of American poker players and where the best ones are. There's like of the top 100 known poker players, like American poker players, 2 of them are under the age of like 28. I mean, it's kind of crazy how like the elite of the elites are guys who've been around since, my time. They've just been able to stay on, like the Jason Coons or whatever, the Ikes. They're in their 30s, and that's because of the lack of online poker right now. So hopefully, the landscape changes for us in America, but we're kind of behind the 8 ball. So if I was like advising an American, I would say, just play for fun or play live, because it's right now it's unfortunately like not the best time.
It's true. You're absolutely right. You see, in terms of demeanor, I'd say you're known to be easygoing, laid back in general. Have you ever had a tense poker experience with someone like cocky, arrogant, someone at the table where you kind of just lost your cool, or you just had to like get out of your normal, because you are very, you're mellow. You're not a guy that's looking for conflict. You're very friendly with everybody. Have you ever had some kind of issues with this?
Well, when you first started this question, I was like, I have no idea for this answer, and then I immediately just thought of something where, probably because this person reminds me of it all the time, but I was at the 3K PLO final table. This isn't a, I'm not going to be yelling at the guy in this story, but I was at the 3K final table, and I ran a big bluff against Ben Lamb. And for some reason, I had some out-of-body experience where I took the card. I'm in seat 1, he's in seat like 5. I took the cards after he folded the river. I put them face up, and I just like flung them almost at him. Like they landed in front of him, where I just had a rush of like adrenaline and he's just sitting there. We're at a WSOP final table, and the cards are just like face up in front of him. He looks at it because it's PLO. You have to take a second, and then he realizes I was bluffing, and he's just like, he loves to. Every time I see Ben, he talks about he says the story, but probably better than me. But
but you guys are friendly. It was sort of like just
like, yeah. It was, well, at the time we weren't probably, we were friendly, but we weren't like friends. But so he was a little shocked. But the way he tells the story now is pretty funny. But yeah, I just remember I've had very few of those experiences. But in terms of, that was a very funny moment. I wish there was a video of me flinging cards face up at Ben. For sure.
That's awesome. What if you hadn't become a poker player? What other interests do you think you might have gone down? What path? Was there any other thing that was close?
Yeah. I love, like in high school, I was really into like law, mock trial. I did like, I played sports and I love sports, but I also was super into like, I would, watch Law and Order, and then all of a sudden I did this mock trial. So then I wanted to be a lawyer. My first major in college was a international politics major. So I think something involving, but at the same time, that's a big commitment, right? Like going to law school, but either something in law or sports.
Right.
Or, I mean, honestly, now in my whole life, like I've loved cooking and food. So something involving owning a restaurant or cooking at it, or being a chef would be something else as well.
Very cool. How has it been in the area where you are directly with COVID? Are places kind of open? Is stuff like completely shut down? How is it?
It's mostly like 25% capacity, open indoors. Obviously, mask required. The casino is, the casinos are open, plexiglass, mask required. I played a grand total one time, and they've been open for probably 4 months or 3 months. So it's mostly just been online for me. But yeah, so it's an unfortunate, crazy situation we're in.
Did you get COVID, or is anyone that you know?
I mean, I have friends that got COVID, but not. Luckily, I've stayed safe.
How was it playing live? What was that like? The experience, was it kind of bizarre?
It was bizarre, man. I remember like just the whole thing. It's kind of uncomfortable. I remember like hitting my knuckles on this plexiglass because you're just like not used to hitting your elbows. It was all very bizarre. And I remember I think I won a big pot, and I think it was a lot partly to the guy couldn't see my stack because of the plexiglass, like all types of like crazy, like it's I think it made me actually feel more comfortable though. Like I don't think I would play without plexiglass. So overall it was I guess positive experience, but it was just so odd, right?
For sure. No, it's definitely it's definitely different. What's the longest you've played a poker in a stretch? Have you ever just like during WSOP like 45 days in a row, or give me like longest probably streak you've played, and also hours? Have you done like a couple 24 8-hour sessions?
Definitely a World Series poker. A summer World Series of grind would be the most I played, right? Where maybe it took 2 days off in 45 or 50 days or something. In terms of hours, I've never been someone who had the desire to or could play super duper long hours. But because I've had plenty of, times in my career where I played a ton of live cash. But the most I've played is probably like 16 hours.
Okay, so pretty serious. Yeah, I was gonna say that's for some reason I was thinking you had like a 2-day 48-hour something, but no.
Yeah, no, I can't. I love my sleep, man. It's too much for me.
I'm with you. The sleep is definitely important. Let's What in terms of, you say big sports fan, you've traveled, you push out on Instagram. What's your favorite place? Looking back at some of these pictures, what do you think your favorite stop you've ever been to, poker or otherwise?
Well, I just saw it, but I would have said this anyways. Just going to my trip to Australia and New Zealand. Australia for poker, obviously for the Aussie Millions, and then continuing on just for fun in New Zealand was definitely probably my favorite poker trip. I'd always wanted to go to the Aussie Millions because Aussie Millions existed since before I started playing at high stakes, right? So, I'd always been like, I want to go, but then I'd always go to PCA and they're back to back, and I was like, can't do it, it's too far. So, I finally went, like only a couple of years ago, I finally went, and just awesome country, awesome time to be there. The weather's great, the people are great. New Zealand is like the most beautiful place I've ever been. So that trip overall has to be number one for me.
Yeah, I would utter that sentiment. It's special. It's just different. The land, something very peaceful in nature and beautiful and different. What online do you think was like your superpower? What made you so successful? You mentioned, you say it kind of casually. Oh, like if you read 2+2 and had access, you could be good. But you were definitely, at this time, you were the number one. It's not just like there's a lot of people playing poker. You were number one ranked in the world. You had unbelievable results. You were grinding a lot. This is pre-Black Friday. What do you think was what were some things you did differently than from people you knew or saw? What do you think was your superpower?
So I think the ability to change my game. So I think a lot of people back then, they like kind of had one style. Like they were either kind of tight or loose, basically, is what. Basically, they're actually either too tight or too loose. That's kind of funny, like looking back on it now. And I think I was able to like, figure out things quicker, basically back then in terms of learning. Like I went from being at the very beginning of my poker career like super loose. Like I remember like Sean Deeb called me Spewzilla. Like there's like a card player thing about it. And then after that I became like kind of like one of the tighter regulars. So, but this is back like 2008, 2009, 2007. So I think being able to kind of like figure out like where I need to be, because I think most players back then weren't really changing their style. Like I know how to play this way. I know how to play tight. I know how to play tight. I know how to play aggressive. I know how to play aggressive. So I think just kind of keeping people guessing and understanding like how people are reacting to me and to other players was something that helped me.
Yeah, no, that's obviously easier said than done. It's also important to know how you're perceived.
Yeah, that's the thing in poker, honestly. Like, especially back then, is like how you're perceived and how people are going to react to you reacting to them. And it was a game of chicken almost.
For sure. I see a question live. Greg Scatchel asking about: are you going to be playing the WSOP main event online? Also, how many players do you expect over under 500?
Yeah, I'm driving like 3.5 hours to New Jersey this weekend, so I'm excited. I'm going to Hoboken, northern New Jersey, right across from New York, where Greg Merson lives, and like Orson Young, and like a lot of my other friends live right in that area. They play a lot of the regulated online gaming in New Jersey. But yeah, so I'm super excited. Actually, I'm not super excited. I'm already having anxiety if I somehow make the final table, having to get on a plane and then not get COVID. So if it was all online, I'd be super excited, I think.
It is. I gotta say, this whole thing about the online flying live, like I get the whole deal, but it's actually going to be pretty exciting. Like the fact of like who gets there, people coming in and flying and going. It's wild.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like the American version doesn't touch the live version where people have to fly. I looked at the flags. There's a guy from Asia. There's a guy from Argentina. A guy from Brazil. They have to get to Rosendorf. That's just, I don't know. That's just
it's pretty insane. I don't even know if
I'm worried about taking a 4-hour flight. Domestic flight. Like
I don't know exactly. I don't know how that's going to go down. Like that just seems like there's probably some restrictions. Some of those countries probably you're not allowed to leave, or there might be.
I hope these guys, like, if they play, they know they can get there. But I was actually hoping. I said this on Twitter. I responded. So I was hoping someone from South America or Asia or something would bag 5 big blinds and see if they would go. Like that's what I was hoping for. The sweat. Like I don't know. It's all kind of ridiculous for me. Ridiculous to me, but at the same time, it's like 10K main event. Like I like to see my friends in Hoboken anyway. It's like whatever. All right, I'll go fire it. See what happens. 500. I don't know. I would assume. I guess I would say under. I would assume like mid 400s if I had to guess, but I haven't really done much research. I know that they've had a decent amount of satellites on WSOP.com.
Are they adding a million to first, or is that the European one? I thought they were like doing.
No, so I think they're adding $1 million first for the heads-up duel between the WSOP Europe winner and the WSOP US winner.
Oh, okay.
They play heads up for $1 million, I believe, is how it is.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. What's your thoughts on this? Like this, there's been some talk about the 5K, the guy won. It was like, that's what I thought was the World Series guy winner for the year. And now they're doing, we're having the 10Ks, like, how they're presenting it. What do you think about that? Like how they sort of.
Yeah. For me, I saw all the hoopla on Twitter, and I just didn't really think it was that big of a deal. I understand the guy wants to say he won the main and he won a ton of money, and good for him. But at the same time, like there was also people don't even say that there was also a 1K main in the US at the time. Like the main event, they had a 1K main during the World Bracelet event. Like that wasn't the main event though, because it was a smaller buy-in or like it. I just.
To be fair, it wasn't the 10K buy-in, right? That was a 5K. This is the 10K. Yeah. I don't listen. That guy. It's not like.
Yeah, I don't think they were ever going to call this guy the main event. Like, I don't think they were going to ever put that guy, even if they didn't have this event. I don't think they were going to give him a banner at the Rio. I never thought they would. So maybe I'd already thought ahead of time like this wasn't it. So I understand what people were thinking like this was the main event. So, but for me, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Like WSP is putting on another tournament now. Having a live portion of it is like whatever. That's like a separate argument. But I don't really think because WSOP they had already announced like when they made the schedule for the online portion, they already announced that they planned to have a live portion in the fall. Now, obviously, that fell through. But when they discussed the online, when they released the online schedule, they said they were going to have a live portion. So if that was the online main event, I think, and this is now the live main event, even though it's not.
Yeah, that makes sense. That feels a little bit more. Feels at least like there's a path for a story. It seems like a little closer and all checks out. What do you think about the asterisk? You win this 10K main event. There's only how many runners? Call it 500 or so or whatever. What do you think on that to call it the main event? You are, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's fine to say there's an asterisk, but at the same time, you can still say you won the main event. It's somewhere in the middle, right? Like how about this? Like, do you get to say you final tabled the main event when there was actually this year there's gonna be 18 final tablists in the main event this year, right? There's gonna be the 9 from Europe and then the 9 from the US. Do you get to say you final tabled it? I guess you're sure.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, during this time, it is good to make adjustments.
Yeah,
you look at the bubble, look at other stuff. Like things are a bit different, but it's good that the stuff's they're trying to be creative. They're doing stuff and they're being active. So I think that. What's your take on the ground you poke? Got to ask. This is current events. It's hot. Yeah. It's exciting. People are betting. What's your status on all that?
Yeah, I bet on Doug. At first, I kind of wanted to see Daniel win. Like I was rooting for him, but then, beforehand, I was like, I'd rather see Daniel win. But then I just decided like he can't win, or he's not winning it. He's not winning often. He's not winning 20% of the time, or 25% of the time, like the betting market says. So I bet on Doug, and I think it's going about as expected. I mean, Doug's winning. He's not like he's not like crushing, but he's doing quite well. And I just think it's just a whole different animal for Daniel. I think he would have had to do way more studying and practicing for probably like years. I mean, that was Doug. I mean, I know Doug hasn't been playing heads up, but he only is 5 years ago, right? Or 6, he was like the best heads up player in the world. So
right.
like just to get to that point, like even if Doug is not in the top 100 anymore, 500 even, it's just a whole different game. And I know Daniel couldn't have played much of heads up cash in his whole life. So yeah, I think it's going as expected. I think it's basically impossible at this point for Daniel to come back.
Right. Yeah, no, Tom was just speaking on this today too. It is tough. It's a totally different animal. You got to get the reps in. You got to play. You can't even just like kind of study a bit, and like it's just different. The flow of it, the feel, the game situations, like it just, yeah, Daniel, if anyone, he's very sharp, smart guy, great player, one of the most successful poker players of all time, but playing 2 tables online heads up versus the guy that made his bread and butter from it. And it's tough to close that gap. It's just different.
Yeah.
They're not playing mixed games. They're not playing, different stuff. They're playing heads up, no limit hold'em.
It's like Doug was like a specialist, right? So you're playing a person that's special. It's just, that's in any kind of, sport or anything, like any kind of certain thing. If you're going to play a guy in his specialty, when you're someone who does a certain type of thing, maybe even a specialist in a different kind, like it's just not going to work. It's just usually not going to end up well for you.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. What is what to you is the most exciting possibilities for poker at the moment? Party poker has done some things online with the no HUDs, real names. There's RTA stuff there. You're hearing players getting accused. There's some scandals. What do you think is like the best sign for poker for the future that you see, like you're hopeful? The limited reentries. What stuff do you think needs to be done, and do you think is hopeful for why poker could be very successful still for a long time?
Yeah, I think the real names is cool. I love it. I love what Party's doing in terms of that. I think the no HUD or limited HUD or like, it's good. And somehow, and these sites are, I can't imagine how much these sites like security teams have to deal with and how on it they have to be. So in terms of sorry, what exactly was the question?
I was just saying, like, which of these things do you think are most important and are good to keep online poker, moving? Because there is talks about.
I think limiting late reg. Like, I think there was a time where before maybe 1 or 2 years ago, where there were certain sites where you could like time where they had late reg so long, where like you could just literally max late reg and just immediately have like a 20% ROI. Even if you barely know how to play poker, where you'd be so close to the money. So I think that's an important thing in live poker too, like limiting late reg. And I'm someone who enjoys late regging, even max late regging. Often, if I play online tournaments these days, I'm setting an alarm so I can freaking max late reg. Like, but I think in terms of keeping people from blowing through tons of money, tons of bullets, and keeping the pros from being able to maximize their EV, I think. Limiting the amount of times you can re-enter and late reg would be best for the stability of long term.
Yeah, we're definitely aligned on that. All right, well, let's we definitely covering a bunch of stuff going down memory lane. We do have a $111 ticket, and I saw a lot of great questions here, which we can go for and try to get some of these through. Again, $111 ticket. We'll keep it rolling here. So Christian, let's you good on time? We're good to do.
Yeah, keep it going.
We'll try and knock out as many. We're not going to be able to do all of them, but we'll do as many as we can. Okay. Question here from Jason E. Woods. What is next for you? Write poker books, grind even more, online, live poker, or wait till COVID's under control? What's next? Have you thought about writing books, doing courses, any coaching?
Yeah.
What you got going on? It's
not something I've really wanted to do. I'm not a great writer. I'm not really even a great articulator of my thoughts per se. I made videos 10 years ago, Poker Savvy Plus, shout out to them. But I don't think it's in the cards for me. I think just playing and figuring out when, and then obviously like poker's not gonna be around forever. Like I always wonder, like, I don't think I'm gonna be playing as my main source of income in even 6 or 7 years from now. So figuring out what's next. Honestly, it's hard to say what's next for me in terms of that. So.
Yes, that's makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's also hard to know what's going to happen, right, with COVID, and where is it live going to open back?
What happens to a live poker? Who knows? There might not be a live World Series next year for all we know. Like, hopefully, like we get this under control.
It's interesting. I remember people like Tuckman was trying to bet it, and I was telling him save your money because he was like thought it was impossible, the World Series. I remember when those lines came out. I haven't heard for the next World Series. I mean, now there's the vaccine and stuff, but I mean, I wonder. It's not a guaranteed.
Yeah, I've joked about this. I've joked about myself on Twitter, but I think I was probably one of the first people to bet on if there'd be a live World Series, and I bet that there would be. and before, I believe there was not a single case in the U.S. They might have had a couple in Seattle from the cruise ship. I bet, and I laid, I think I laid $8,000 to win $400. I laid 20 to 1 against Doug Polk, and I lost. So yeah, I was behind the times with COVID for sure. I've learned my lesson, but yeah, that was a ridiculous funny bet I lost, I guess.
Speaking of betting, what do you think about the election stuff? There's still people looking for action. I'm seeing 20 to 1. I've got I sprinkled some stuff, different bets over the last few years with the Trump files and what's going on. What do you think's happening right now? I know people that think it's 50-50 legitimately, even though it looks like new news is coming out and it's whatever. Is this one sealed and dealed, or do you think there's a price?
So I was really involved in election betting, so I might be biased, but I don't really think I'm biased in saying that. I think it's pretty much over. I think maybe there's like a 2 or 3% equity in terms of like the Supreme Court overturning it, but I don't think the Supreme Court's going to even see the case. I think they're by far most likely to just refuse to take it, which they do. Supreme Court gets asked to take tons of cases every year, and they just turn it down. So I think they're not gonna want to, the people the rightist judges on the Supreme Court aren't going to want to maybe embarrass Trump, and they're just going to refuse to take it, and then it's just going to be the end of it. I think, I don't want to get too political here, but no, I don't think there's some widespread conspiracy in these mostly red states against Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's gotten a little out of hand. It's honestly a bit like, forget which side of the political spectrum you're on or what you believe or who you want. Like, the reality is, if Trump somehow were to become president at this point, I feel like it would be really chaotic for the country. Like, it could just be, I mean, it just feels like everything would be out the door. It would just be like, it could be.
Yeah. I mean, it's already like, unfortunately, like, I think there's probably 20% of the country who are convinced that he got cheated and that are going to be,
Right.
So I can imagine if the other 80, if it gets flipped, and then the other 80 are like, what? But,
yeah, it could just be too wild. What was the first thing you bought with your first grand prize? And if you are given second chance, will you repeat that path? Interesting.
I think I bought a car. Haven't really bought many like crazy things, but just a car, I guess.
We got people giving hand history. Interesting.
I saw that. Is that the tens? That's the tens hand?
Yeah.
I look at that. Oh, come on, man. Oh, what's the question? It's a PKO too, right? Oh my god.
Yeah, you just fired. You're just snapping. First of all, yeah, but that's pretty crazy. Actually,
it's pretty outrageous action.
That's what you get on Party, People are firing. There's some gambling going on there. Yeah, we'll have to know what happened. Obviously, I'm
gonna say he lost. He basically has it looks like a PLO hand where he needs the board to pair to win. But
yeah, how many losing years have you had in your career? Have you considered?
I think I've had one and then one break even. Maybe two. I would say 1.5.
Yeah. It's also really break even when you start talking about amount of buy-ins. If you look at a year and if you're plus or minus a little bit, right? That's
there's definitely been 2, possibly 3 years that I lost in 3 years that I've lost in tournaments. So yeah, tournament variance is like pretty crazy. Like, luckily for maybe for one of the 2 of those years, I've been able to like make it up in cash. But yeah.
Yeah, it's I'd say that the variance. The variance is just so wild. It's so hard to understand and really be able to put a right gauge on it. It really is something that you have to have good mental aptitude. You have to really be able to process and be realistic about it. It's so easy to be not realistic with results and just sort of or be results oriented, I should say.
Sure.
What? Give me your favorite and least favorite starting hand. I've never heard the least favorite. Is there anyone that you like? You're like, oh, I gotta play it, but I don't want to play it. Like I know
Aces, magnets. No, I don't have a least favorite. Favorite, I love this. Everyone loves the small pairs, the sweet connectors, but I'm gonna go with aces.
Yeah, got a Michael Phelps question here. Where did you meet Michael Phelps? So shout out to MP. If you're checking it out, where was it?
I think it was the same. I think it was the same point where Scott Freeman, SC Trojans, Tournament Online OG, was coming to Baltimore to hang out with you two.
Yeah.
And I was friends with Scott, and Scott knew I lived, 20 minutes away, and he knew that I was doing well in line at the time, and we just hooked up, and I came over and I hung out. I think the first time we were just playing online, like just clicking buttons, and there was a lot of fun memories hanging out with you guys in Baltimore. So
yeah, that was fun. I was trying to think if that was the first time or not, but I do remember.
It feels like it was. That was a long time ago. That was like the townhouse on the water one. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
that was good times for sure. What have you talked to Scott in the last few years? I haven't really
talked to Scott in like over 5 years. So.
I talked to him a few years ago, but
he was in Chicago doing like investment banking or something like that, or maybe trading.
That sounds right. It has been a bit, but yeah, man, it's so interesting. I would love to, look back at like the top couple hundred guys or just guys that we're friends with that played that really haven't
that aren't playing, seeing what they're doing. Yeah, for sure. I always wonder. Sometimes someone will pop up on Facebook that I was friends with, and I'm like,
yeah.
And I start scrolling and like, what is this guy up to? Like, what is he doing?
Yes, yeah, I've got there's definitely some I wouldn't have pegged or guessed, and also some guys that are still sort of like undercover playing or grinding some tournaments, and
a lot, like especially like for example, Greg. I get people asked about Greg and Tony a lot because neither of them are really like out in the open anymore, and Greg's just been freaking plays 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, something like that, killing it.
Yeah, that's something, and Tony Gregg, I knew Tony did like a 30-day meditation or something, because I did a 10-day one where no talking, writing, reading. So pretty crazy. I think he did a few of those.
Tony would go to, I think it was a place in Maine he would go to. He went like maybe twice a year or more. He's probably been 5 or 6 times where 30 days, like no talking, barely eating, like vegan, like really not much stuff.
30 days seems that seems a bit long. Like 10 was a stretch. I 3 or 4 day is like pretty.
Tony's hitting the float tank every day. Have you done that before? I've been thinking about.
I haven't done float tank. No, I have not. I think all that stuff, like there's this the meditation deal and doing that is so important, but it's just like I think it shows you if you can't do a 10-minute or 15-minute sort of meditation or relaxation, that you're probably just a little too scattered. You might want to be able to be able to do that. So
yeah, I'm not great at that either. Like those guys are Tony and Greg are way more zen than me. I'm not. My brain is all over the place.
Yeah, I think we're probably the ones we need to do it more though. That's the sign for it. It's not easy though. People ask about your biggest cash. We've already gone over that. What's the favorite online MTT of your career? Was it the 100 rebuy? That seemed to be one you just smashed and won a lot in.
Yeah, probably. Stars 100 rebuy, like sweet 2007 to 2011, probably. The good old days where we were just like going dark. I remember actually, I have a funny story where I got banned for a week for talking in the chat about flipping, for colluding in the 100 rebuy with the net 15. We both got banned for a week, and I was so pissed. Yeah, everyone was doing it, but you couldn't talk about it in chat. You couldn't say let's flip next hand, and I got banned for a week, like during WCOOP or something. I was so pissed.
Wow.
Yeah, the good old days.
Jeez. What's the sickest beat you took in a tournament situationally? Anything really deep, big moment, bad, those big scores, final tables?
I can't even remember off the top of my head. My memory's shot in my old age.
That's good though. That's a good sign. If you're blocking that stuff out, I probably have.
Yeah, I tried to exit out.
That is good. Let's see. Some interesting, funny questions here. Oh yeah, major influences as a poker player. I mean, you mentioned Tony and Greg. Any other? I'm sorry. Yeah, Greg and Tony. Any other guys like people? What about who you admired growing up or watched on TV? Anyone? Any names that stand out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of guys online, just like a lot of the people in the boom, like the Phil Ivies of the world. I mean, who didn't idolize him as an 18-year-old, in America? There's so many guys online. Like honestly, like Marchese, like guys like him, like the Timexes, and even though he's younger than me, and so many guys like Jaboro, Steve Gross, who I always talk about. Like people, if you ever want to look at a pre-Black Friday graph, you should check out Steve Gross's stuff. Like there were so many guys I looked up to, and I tried to would watch them play if I would, if I was done a session, I would see what they're doing and see what they're up to, and I was always trying to gain more information and get better.
Yeah, for sure. I still don't understand too. Like I just like they were just so ahead of the time. Even like yourself had such great results in crushing, but like I'm just trying like the absolute top back then when there really wasn't a lot of information. I just wonder what they like the people that were the innovators there. What if they were just were they running some programs? Were they just like
I think they're in a puzzle. They're trying to put the pieces together and trying to trying to create logical reasons for doing it. And I think, the best players did that. And that's why, a lot of the best players now are still those guys. Like, they've been able to adapt just with different learning mechanisms, whether it's Ike or Jason Kuhn. Like, those guys were around when I was around.
Yeah, it is crazy. Some of these guys that have just really withstood the test of time and doing it all the way from the very day one and still firing at the pace and velocity they're doing. What was it? How did you first get into poker? What was your first introduction? Who showed it to you, and how did you get in there?
I guess in high school. I think I was a junior in high school, so this is 2003, 2003, 4. I remember there was a kid who would sit at our lunch table because he was like juniors and seniors would eat lunch together in my school, St. Mary's High School in Annapolis, Maryland. Shout out. Okay. And one of the kids was a sophomore, but he had to eat lunch with the juniors and seniors certain days of the week because of his schedule. And he would, I was a junior, he was a sophomore, he'd sit down at our lunch table and kind of brought him in. And then he started talking about poker. And then all of a sudden I was like, poker? And then I'd go home, watch it, and then all of a sudden I was all in. And then all of a sudden, his name's Joel Bidnick. Since you asked, my boy Joel, I'd have to, then I would just go to his house every weekend almost and just play poker, play live. Obviously, we started clicking buttons online, and yeah, that's how it all started.
Very, very cool. So kind of right place, right time, just interesting.
The exact age, I think, where it's best to start learning how to figure it out, and having the time and freedom and having no worries,
Yes.
The pennies that I made scooping ice cream.
It's for sure. Were you playing on Party or those sites? Did you put a couple $50 transfers?
Yeah. I did get the free 50 on Party. I remember doing that back in the day, but I was mostly just playing on, I think, PokerStars for the most part, though. But yeah.
Oh, so what was your first? So online, then what was the first year? You started in those?
I mean, it was before I was 18. It was definitely 2005, 4 or 5. I think PokerStars literally had a change birth date option on their on their site back then. So I think a lot of us did that. Well, I kept the same screen. A lot of people change screen names when they're after 18, but I don't advise gambling before the age of 18. But
right,
just changed my birth date and I was ready to go.
Yeah, you must just misclicked or whatever, and then and sort it out when it's time to cash out years later. Very cool. Well,
dude, I remember getting that just reminded me. I remember me and my friend Joel, we were just grinding. We were bonus because Party Poker would give away $50 for a new account, no deposit. We were bonus, finding free $50 from these random European sites. And I remember getting a check. We got a check for whatever, maybe $2,000. We're 18. And they sent us a check from the Netherlands. We got a check, something ridiculous. It was some European country, not even whatever. And it took 2 months to clear. and I had to bring it to a separate bank to clear the check. Like those were the things we were up to back then.
It's the wild man, the old days and the refer a friends and all the the sites. Like it really is. It's crazy to see some of these sites and how they've been around and the rides and some of the Black Friday stuff was so massive of a swing for the industry and for everybody. Do you remember where you were when that happened, when Black Friday hit?
Yeah, I know exactly where we were. Unfortunately, it was especially at the time of me because my dad actually died later that month. He had cancer, so he had pancreatic cancer. So I knew he was going to die. So I was with him, and it was an especially tough time. But it was very, very weird for me because, as I said, during 2011, I was just like grinding a ton of PLO. Like, so I had a lot of money online. I think I had 6 figures on Stars, and I had some on Full Tilt. And luckily for me, I actually randomly sent my money to a Canadian on Full Tilt when everything happened. So I actually got my Full Tilt balance kind of right away. And as we all know, Stars paid everyone out pretty quickly. So I was lucky for that to happen. But yeah,
that sounds like
never forget where I was and what.
It's pretty. That's got to be a pretty intense, stressful.
Yeah,
your whole career's kind of changing in front of you. Sorry you lose your father. That's extremely difficult anytime, let alone you're kind of just getting all this news and things are happening at once. So how were you able to did you take some time? Did you then get to Canada or Mexico, or did you kind of relax for a while before you got going again?
So I guess maybe I was lucky where I had other things on my plate where I felt like I didn't feel too uncomfortable. I was Stars is going to pay us out, and I'm dealing with this other stuff obviously in my life. So I didn't I don't think I stressed over it as a lot of people. But yeah, and then I did not move anywhere. I would take trips. I went to Toronto probably 5 times. I went to Playa del Carmen, Mexico for 2 weeks at a time. I would play a series, but I didn't really have the desire to full on move. Because at that point, in 2000, in the middle of 2010 maybe, I'd been playing only basically Sundays and maybe Tuesdays in terms of tournaments. So starting then, I was mostly just playing cash during the week and playing online tournaments during the Sunday. So I didn't really think it was feasible just to move.
Yeah, that's
make a vacation. I go to Montreal, Toronto, Playa, see my friends, and yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's it's kind of I say this is one of the defining moments in my career that actually was a positive in the moment. I remember where I was as well, and it looked like it was going to be a really bad thing, but it turned out to be made me travel more, made me do some other things, get back in shape, kind of reevaluate what I was doing. I was just kind of in a rut and eating poorly, partying, drinking, and just playing online all day. So it was kind of in the moment I was oh, this is terrible, but it actually ended up shifting to be around positive. I don't know if the same for you, maybe with traveling and doing some of the stuff and maybe changing what your kind of routine was. Because obviously you had a lot of success live as well, and maybe
I think I just started playing more live. I think that's basically what happened. All of a sudden it was the World Series, right? Where it's because it happened in April, and I just kind of chilled. I knew I was going to play the World Series in 2011. So and then I just mostly was playing live cash, live tournaments, a little bit on shitty American sites, and and that was that.
Yeah, it's always it's always in the moment. Stuff can seem kind of crazy and worse than it is. What's your favorite stop on tour that you would say right now you want to go back? What's the first place, if the doors are open, you would just go right away? I think you said Australia you love, New Zealand, but
yeah,
what about poker room?
Yeah, somewhere. Just more realistically, Montreal. I think we've had some good nights in Montreal. I remember one funny night, one funny story I can tell from Montreal, where first of all, Playground, they do a great job. The food, the chairs, the price. The one Canadian dollar a minute from poker massage was the best best deal you can get. All that. In the city, it's just an amazing city. But yeah, I remember going out in Montreal with you, and this is a story I like to tell because it's pretty funny. And I don't know if you remember this, and it's gonna dog one of your friends a little bit. But me, you hit me up. We're like, me, Antonio, and Phil are going out to a club. Do you want to come with me? You want to come? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm in. So us four are in a cab together, or a big like van taxi, and then we were about to get there, and Antonio turns to you and he says, I'm not going in. I can't go with them two. Phil Lock is wearing sweatpants. I'm at least like dressed up, so I was offended. Like I wasn't looking sharp like Antonio, of course, but I was like a little offended. And then I was like, whatever. And you're obviously like, you're the PBF, you're the nicest guy. You're like, come on, Antonio, stop being ridiculous. Like what? And anyways, Antonio just as soon as we get out, he beelines it to the VIP section to get in. The door opens and Phil Lock comes out, and the head security guy sees Phil Lock, doesn't see Antonio, says, Phil Lock, and like loses his mind, and we get into the club faster than Antonio, because the other guy saw Phil Lock in sweatpants at a super trendy club in Montreal, and that was I didn't think of this story for years until last night.
Remember this? Do you remember that? No, I remember going out. I don't remember I know Phil I think they historically. They're not always going to dress up, or they're coming from the poker clothes or whatever. So that all rings a bell. But I don't remember that they didn't let him in, and that they Antonio. But that is.
Antonio wouldn't. It wasn't like we're having this conversation in the cab where he says, I'm like walking in before you guys. Like he's embarrassed to walk with me and Phil, and the way it all went down was something out of a movie where when Phil gets out of the thing and I usher us in so fast. I think we literally see Antonio like waiting, but by a rope, waiting to get to hell. So
we're waving at him. Antonio takes his fashion very seriously. He's got like really certain people at sick amount of people at dinner. He's very particular in his ways, but that's funny. That's awesome. Phil Lock is such a hero. Phil Lock has never really done a podcast. Got to get him on, man. He is.
Phil Lock. Come on, you can convince him. I hope.
No, yeah, I talk to him a lot. He's just very quiet, private, and sort of he's just been under the radar. But yeah, Phil's a must have on the pod.
Drum.
Yes, for sure. Well, yeah, I think. Well, first of all, the Ravens are playing. So the Ravens, what is their record tonight? Are they're 6-5 or 6-5-1 or something?
I don't even know. I should know.
Come on, Christian, you got to know that's got to be all on the spot.
6-5. They are 6-5.
Okay, so they're hanging in. They're in the mix. This is an important game. They had a COVID episode. What do you think about Lamar Jackson? He's having a bit of a rough year compared to like his absolute, show-stopping, basically MVP and just crushing it. What do you think? Is he too hyped up? Is it just kind of bad luck? Do you think he's?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. Like, there's some bad variance. There's some injuries. There's some the league kind of like figuring out a way to defend him. I think he's gonna be a fantastic quarterback if he stays healthy for the next 5 or 8 years. But he's maybe not like he's not in the toppest of tiers, which is fine. You don't have to be as good as Patrick Mahomes. No one is, but I'm pretty happy with him as the Ravens quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be happy to have him driving the team. What's your favorite sport to sweat if you're betting at all or mixing up? Like, is it NFL? Do you like the NBA? Where do you like UFC?
Yeah, probably. I wasn't a UFC fan until COVID. Now they have it freaking every weekend. So betting UFC every weekend is pretty fun to sweat. Taking some of these, big dogs or whatever. But really, all of them I enjoy in different ways. Football, basketball, UFC. Baseball, I guess. You're never dead in baseball, right? You can always come back and win.
Yeah, that's.
In terms of betting, you're actually just dead in a lot of these sports.
In
the third and fourth quarters or whatever.
It's true. I mean, I don't know. The NBA though seems like there's a lot of leads evaporators. Some crazy basketball can have some. Crazy
that's true. Basketball,
basketball.
I guess I can tell by your face, like baseball gets dogged a lot, and rightfully so. But one of the redeeming qualities is that you actually can win until the last at bat because it's not by time, right? It's by at bats. So
that's true. That's a good way. That is a good way to look at it. I've actually that movie Moneyball, when I saw it, that really changed my view on baseball, and like I appreciate it more and thought like the intricacies and the pitch counts and kind of understanding more about it. I've gotten a lot more into golf as well. I think it's kind of fun to watch and sweat, especially like DraftKings.
Me too. Yeah, I was. It's another thing where like sports is back. I guess I'm watching and betting on golf. So that was that. Because that was the first sport to come back, right? Because it's individual and it's they're outside on a freaking course by themselves. That was sweating golf every weekend. COVID was
pretty safe one to come back. What would be what do you think the overall landscape of poker will be? Give me do you think US is going to get it back? You saw Michigan, Pennsylvania pass, West Virginia. There's now there's sort of becoming a bit of enough states for some liquidity. Are you hopeful? Do you think poker is going to boom again in the US?
I think eventually. I just think it could take a long time. I think the big domino would be California, which it doesn't seem. I mean, I haven't followed it super closely, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen like super anytime soon. But I think like once California would come back, like it could create like a huge boom. I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years, but I would love for it to come back. But it's growing every year, right? Like even like, for example, in Maryland, they just passed sports betting. And this is just hopefully like, next year they do poker or something like that, where eventually poker is going to be legal in, if not every state, most states. So I think it could take some time though, which unfortunately could like affect how the games will look at the end. But for example, like California, I don't know the number, but I believe like California on Black Friday, like California, in terms of the worldwide usage on PokerStars on Black Friday was some ridiculous number. Like it was 25% of the entire world.
Yeah.
PokerStars players active were from California.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that California is like a whole, massive in terms of population, money, the type of people that play, like could change the game.
Yeah, I think it was something that was like the third largest country in the world, like the state alone or something, or it's something crazy. I know Stars made like a whole campaign. They were trying to do.
Yeah, I remember when Daniel was driving around to these Indian casinos trying to publicize it. But hopefully one day.
Yeah. What is did you catch any? Do you like this heads up stuff like the Daniel Polk? You mentioned you bet, and what about like the Antonio Helmuth? Did you watch any of the duel? Did you see any of that? Do you like that format?
I've been meaning to like watch it fully because obviously I saw people tweeting about it, especially like Galfond and stuff. So I've only watched like the Poker Go highlights, but I would like to at some point definitely catch up and see that. But yeah, I mean, I've been watching a decent amount of the Daniel and Doug. It's interesting. And now now this is cool to see the poker community. There's so many people that are like talking about it, streaming. I can't believe I can watch them play on 5 different streams. It's pretty funny. But it's cool. I mean, it's good for poker. Anything like this is good for poker, especially when you have someone so mainstream and huge as Daniel, who's like, the number 1 or number 2 ambassador of the game.
Yeah, I think it is great for poker. It's also like I kind of thought this was going to happen, and it was funny how they did that. I like how they went live first, right? So they got because they have such
that was hilarious TV. That was great.
It was like a bromance kind of though. Like I kind of saw it happening. Like I saw it going that way, But I don't know if it seems like their demeanor is sort of toned down and pretty friendly in general. I think it's gotten less. I
think it's the type of thing where someone has a big lead, one person's humbled, and the other person doesn't want to like stoke the fire too much, and that's kind of I don't know. It's kind of my read on the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think they'll go the distance, or do you think it's going to get called after halfway?
I don't know. I've heard some. You might know about the incentives that Daniel has from Bill Perkins, I believe, to keep playing, giving him extra odds since Perkins bet so much on him. So I think I think Daniel might quit without that, but with this, he might be, and then Perkins. I mean, there might be him incentivized to keep playing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What do you think?
I think they'll probably keep playing. I think they'll keep playing as long as it's close. Like I think if it gets too much more out of hand, like if it gets to be like it just is like absolutely out of reach, like for sure, then yeah, no. But I don't know. I mean, what percent done are they? I'm not even sure. Is it 20 now? Are they up to 20-ish?
I think they're at over 7,000 hands, so that would be 20.
Almost
more than 20. Yeah, 30.
Yeah. Okay, so it's going fairly quickly. Yeah, very interesting. Well, no, it's fun. I would say like in general, I'd say poker. I think poker in general has been pretty exciting. Like I think it's been interesting time during COVID. I feel like there's been enough entertainment, action, series. There's a lot, maybe even too much online where people are getting a little burnt out, and
yeah,
a lot of big series and sites.
It's crazy. All these sites have different series. Like, I mean, good for them. Like, I understand it's the right time, but I especially think it's funny when all these, there's all these like new series, or they're naming live series, like a lot of them are party poker. So I don't mean to like.
No,
like,
no, for sure.
Open, it's just funny. I mean, but I get it. Like, I get it. Like, it's what needs to be done. But it is pretty funny seeing so much, and then all these freaking series on not just party, but PokerStars and ACR and all of that.
Yeah, it gets to be, yeah, exactly. Start branding stuff as whatever. I mean, I it is good, but it's like if it's too much, it's a bit. You start just like doing the live events or just like their mains, which is, hey, it works. It's just at some point you can't do it all the time. So we'll see. We'll kind of see how that plays out. But I know the Ravens, they got a game tonight, Christian. We have covered a lot. This has been a treat because we have not caught up in a while. It's been way too long. So this has been cool to kind of run through your career, catch up, see what's going on. It sounds like you are you're doing well and playing some good PLO, and that we'll have to battle a bit. PLO is fun. I look forward to hopefully we get to play live or some tournaments coming up and with PLO, and we'll have to cross paths and maybe a Maryland reunion, get to a Ravens game in the future when life is back to normal. It might not be this season, but yeah, it's been a while, and we are going to do a giveaway though. So I want you to I did copy this, and we're going to give away a $111 ticket. You guys can still get in. It's not too late right now. You ready to give this away?
Yeah, I'm picking, or what would you mean? Oh, you're doing random. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Let me load this up. So just let me get this queued up. So we got this. Go next. Create contest. I am short, and download retweets, and then you're going to tell me when to pick it. So yeah, $111 ticket. That's not nothing. That's a nice shot. I saw a guy actually message me that he hit the 18K score first place with one of this other day. I think he was just now somewhere. Let me find him. Someone hit. There it is, right there.
With your ticket?
Yeah, the one shot. I just saw it tonight, actually. So I haven't even.
Dude, amazing. That's great for you. Great content.
Yeah, that is fun. So, all right, here it is. We got 103 eligible people. That's not bad. It's over $1 equity per retweet, and Christian is going to go choose a winner. You tell me when.
Now.
Boom. There it is. We are going to say we're sure, and it's getting right here. $111 ticket, and the winner is Ray. Hey, it's Ray. I think Ray won. Someone named Ray took down first and a ticket, and there is going to be, we'll send him a message, and we're going to root on the Ravens. Who are they? I'm embarrassed to say. I should know. Who are the Ravens playing tonight?
They're playing the Cowboys.
Oh, what's the line on that? Ravens got to be favored, right?
Ravens are 8.5-point favorites. Yeah.
Big one.
They were up 4. I looked at my phone once. They're up 4 late in the second quarter. Ravens.
Took a peek, and I'm going to check that game out as well. And Christian, man, seriously a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, and always a treat. So we'll catch up soon, and yeah, get some sports cards, man. Let's I'll tell you, that's where it's at.
Marchese again. Thanks.
We're gonna go to the Marchese school and grab some stuff from him. So all right, man. Appreciate the time. Thanks so much, Christian. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jeff. It was great.
All right, guys. That was Christian Harder, known as Real Charter 30 online legend, was #1 in the world in 2009. He has continued to withstand the test of time, still in the game, still crushing, still having fun. And we did reminisce about some time back in Baltimore in the days. And we'll be on for more podcasts next week. Thanks for watching. Twitch streams coming up. We'll see you guys soon.